There is a question that quietly follows us through almost every stage of our lives. Not, what do I want? But, what is the right choice? From the moment we're old enough to understand consequences, we begin searching for certainty. The right school, the right degree, the right career, the right city, the right partner. As though somewhere beyond our sight exists a version of life where every decision fits perfectly into place, where every mistake was avoided, where every regret never happened. Maybe that's why choosing feels so terrifying, because we don't believe we're choosing between two possibilities. We believe we're choosing between success and failure, between happiness and misery, between the life we were meant to live and the one we'll forever regret. And maybe that's not entirely our fault. We've watched people around us suffer. A marriage falls apart. Someone loses their dream job. A friend drops out of school. Someone invests everything they have into a business that collapses. From the outside, it's easy. If only he had taken that job. If only she hadn't married him. If only they had waited. We build entire stories from a single decision, as if one choice explains an entire human life. But who are we to be so certain? We judge outcomes, we rarely see causes, because every decision a person makes is shaped by things invisible to us. Their fears, their childhood, their parents, their trauma, their hopes, the conversations nobody else heard, the pain nobody else witnessed. No one chooses from an empty mind. Every decision is made by someone carrying a lifetime behind them. And yet, we still spend our lives searching for the perfect choice. The decision that guarantees happiness. The decision that protects us from regret. The decision that finally lets us say, I chose correctly. But what if there never was one? Let's imagine someone named John. On an ordinary Tuesday morning, John wakes up, nothing feels different. He puts on his running shoes, attaches the leash to his dog, walks outside. If you had asked John that morning whether today would change his life, he probably would have laughed, because this wasn't supposed to be one of those days. It was just another run. Halfway through the park, his dog notices a rabbit. Without warning, the leash slips free. The dog bolts into the trees. John runs after him, calling his name, searching for nearly an hour. Eventually, he gives up. Heartbroken, he prints flyers and spends the rest of the day putting them around town. At one of the notice boards, a woman walks over. She smiles. You lost your dog? John nods. I actually volunteer at a shelter, she says. My name's Samantha. They talk, only for a few minutes. Before leaving, they exchange phone numbers. Weeks later, they're dating. Months later. John is driving across town to pick Samantha up for dinner. But halfway there, another driver runs a red light. The collision sends John to the hospital. While examining him, doctors discover something they weren't looking for. A brain tumor. One that had been growing silently for years. Had John not been in that accident, it may never have been found until it was too late. The surgery saves his life. Now ask yourself, which decision changed John's future? Buying the dog? Going for a run? The rabbit appearing? Losing the leash? Printing flyers? Meeting Samantha? Getting into the accident? Or discovering the tumor? The answer is none of them, and all of them. Because life doesn't unfold one decision at a time. It unfolds through chains of decisions, one event leading to another. Each one impossible to predict while you're living it. Imagine, for a moment, that John never bought the dog. He wakes up on that same Tuesday, drinks his coffee, heads straight to work. He never meets Samantha. He never gets into the accident. He never discovers the tumor. Years pass. The tumor continues to grow unnoticed. One tiny decision, a dog, a rabbit, a flyer, completely changes the course of his life. Now imagine another version. John finds his dog immediately. No flyers, no Samantha, no accident, no surgery. Another life, another future, another John. This is the strange thing about being human. Every decision creates a future, but it also erases countless others. When you choose one university, you never become the person who attended another. When you accept one job, you never meet the co-workers you would have had somewhere else. When you marry one person, you never know who you might have become with someone else. The strange part is that those versions of ourselves don't disappear because they were impossible. They disappear because they were never chosen. And yet, we spend years imagining them. What if I had taken that scholarship? What if I never moved away? What if I had said yes? What if I had said no? Our minds have a habit of turning unchosen lives into perfect ones. The life we didn't live always seems cleaner, simpler, happier, because imagination edits out suffering. Reality never does. The life you're living contains unpaid bills, arguments, disappointments, failure, loneliness. But the life you never lived, that life exists only inside your imagination. And imagination is an excellent storyteller. It removes the boring days, the heartbreak, the uncertainty, leaving behind only possibility. Maybe that's why regret is so persuasive. It isn't comparing your real life to another real life. It's comparing reality to fiction. Think about your own life, not the biggest decision you've ever made, a small one. The friend you almost didn't talk to, the class you almost skipped, the bus you almost missed, the message you almost never sent. You probably can't trace every consequence that followed. Because life doesn't reveal itself that way. It only makes sense looking backward. Never while you're walking through it. The philosopher Søren Kierkegaard once wrestled with this very problem. Not because he couldn't make decisions, but because he understood something terrifying about freedom. Freedom doesn't simply give us possibilities, it forces us to kill them. Every yes is also 1,000 no's. The moment you choose one future, every other future becomes unreachable, not impossible, simply lost. And perhaps that's why choosing feels so heavy, because we aren't just choosing a path. We're bearing every path we didn't take. Kierkegaard wrote in Either Or, marry and you will regret it. Do not marry and you will also regret it. At first it sounds cynical, almost like he's saying happiness is impossible. But that's not what he meant. He was showing us that regret isn't proof you made the wrong choice. It's proof that you're human. Because every decision costs something, even the right ones. Every beautiful life requires giving up another beautiful possibility. The tragedy isn't that we choose wrongly. The tragedy is that we only get to live one life. And one life can never contain every possibility. There is a feeling that almost everyone has experienced, but very few people know how to describe. It isn't fear. It isn't sadness. It isn't regret. It's something stranger. It's the feeling that arrives just before a life-changing decision. Standing outside a university, wondering which course to choose. Looking at a ring in your pocket, asking yourself whether you're ready to spend the rest of your life with one person. Hovering over the submit button on a resignation letter. Moving to another country. Starting over. In moments like these, it doesn't feel like you're choosing between two options. It feels like you're choosing between two versions of yourself. And that's terrifying. Because once the choice is made, one version gets to exist, and the other never will. Kierkegaard believed this feeling wasn't a flaw in being human. Imagine standing at the edge of a cliff. The fear isn't only that you might fall, it's also the realization that you could jump. That unsettling awareness that you have the freedom to choose is what Kierkegaard meant. Freedom is exhilarating, but it's also heavy, because every choice places responsibility back into our own hands. Now imagine someone so afraid of making the wrong decision that they make none at all. They stay in the relationship because leaving is risky, but they never fully commit either. They keep postponing the degree they want because they're afraid it won't work out. They dream about starting a business for years, but never begin. They tell themselves they're keeping their options open. It sounds wise, but is it? Because refusing to choose isn't escaping the consequences of choice. It's choosing a different consequence. Time keeps moving whether we decide or not. Life doesn't pause while we search for certainty. The opportunities we refuse to act on don't wait politely for us to become confident. They move on. Sometimes, indecision feels safer than commitment. But indecision has a cost of its own. A life spent waiting can become a life that was never really lived. Maybe the problem isn't that we don't know which path is right. Maybe the problem is the question itself. We ask, which choice will make me happiest? What if this isn't my purpose? What if I'm wasting my life? But how could anyone possibly know? No one gets to compare two complete versions of their life. You can't live one future, rewind time, and then live another. The experiment is impossible, so when we say, I should have chosen differently, what evidence are we using? None. We're comparing reality to imagination. We know every flaw in the life we're living, but we know none of the flaws in the life we never lived. The road not taken is always smooth in memory because we've never had to walk it. Perhaps there isn't a perfect career, only careers that ask different things of us. Perhaps there isn't a perfect marriage, only two imperfect people choosing one another again and again. Perhaps there isn't a perfect city to live in, only places where certain dreams grow while others fade. Every path gives something. Every path takes something. To choose is not to avoid loss. It is to decide which loss you're willing to accept. That's a difficult thought, but it is also strangely liberating. Because if every meaningful choice comes with sacrifice, then feeling the weight of sacrifice doesn't mean you've chosen wrongly. It means you've chosen something real. Maybe we've spent our whole lives searching for certainty, when courage was what we needed all along. The hardest choice you'll ever make. So, is there a right choice? Do you think there's one? Maybe you have two. We tell ourselves that somewhere out there is the perfect career, the perfect relationship, the perfect city, the perfect version of ourselves. If only we could find it, everything would finally make sense. But perhaps we've misunderstood what a choice is. A choice isn't a test with one correct answer hidden among the wrong ones. It's a commitment, a declaration that says, of all the lives I could have lived, this is the one I'm willing to build. Notice I said build, not find, because maybe that's where we've gone wrong. We've spent our lives searching for meaning as though it's buried somewhere waiting to be discovered. But what if meaning isn't something we uncover? What if it's something we create? Let's go back to John. Was buying the dog the right decision? Without it, he might never have met Samantha. Without Samantha, he would have never been in that accident. Without that accident, the doctors might never have discovered the tumor. So was the dog the best decision of his life? We don't know, because another version of John still exists in our imagination. The John who never bought the dog. Maybe that John became a successful architect. Maybe he traveled the world. Maybe he lived longer. Or maybe the tumor took his life before anyone found it. We'll never know, and that's the point. The moment we start believing we know what would have happened, we stop imagining. We start rewriting history. We tell ourselves stories that comfort our regrets. If only I'd taken that job. If only I'd said yes. If only I'd stayed. But those stories are built on a future that never existed. We aren't remembering another life. We're inventing one. There is something strangely unfair about being human. We can imagine thousands of futures, but we're only allowed to live one. Every decision closes 1,000 doors. Not because the other lives were impossible, but because time only moves in one direction. You only live forward. You only understand backward. And those two things rarely happen at the same moment. Maybe that's why regret hurts so much. It tries to convince us that certainty existed, that somewhere in the past there was one perfect decision waiting for us, and we simply missed it. But life has never worked that way. No one has complete information. No one sees every consequence. No one knows what tomorrow is carrying. Every decision you've ever made was made by the person you were at that moment, with the knowledge you had, with the fears you carried, with the dreams you believed in. When you judge your past self using what you know today, you're asking someone to possess knowledge they could never have had. That isn't wisdom. It's hindsight pretending to be fairness. So perhaps the hardest choice you'll ever make isn't choosing a career, or getting married, or having children, or moving across the world. Perhaps the hardest choice is deciding to stop mourning the person you never became, because that person isn't waiting somewhere. They aren't living a happier life in another universe. They are a possibility. Nothing more. The only life capable of becoming meaningful is the one you're living now. Kierkegaard believed that life wasn't about eliminating uncertainty. It was about having the courage to choose despite it. Not because you know you'll be right, but because refusing to choose is still a choice. A life spent waiting for certainty often becomes a life spent watching opportunities disappear. The future has never belonged to the people who were certain. It has belonged to the people willing to act without certainty. So, is there a right choice? Maybe, maybe not. I don't think we'll ever know. Maybe that's what it means to live. To walk forward without certainty. To carry regret without letting it become your home. To accept that every beautiful life requires leaving another beautiful possibility behind. Not because one was perfect, but because you only get one. And perhaps that is what makes this life so precious. Because its value doesn't come from containing every possibility. It comes from the fact that it never could.